Sure. Can you guys still hear me? I switched my microphone to a better mic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
hear
can
you
hear
good.
you.
But we've both, Dennis, we've both lived or spent time at least in Oaxaca State, where you are in Mexico.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Hans, you got robbed near Playa del Carmen, where Dennis is.
By the
Really?
police. By the police.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what they do. That's definitely what they do.
That's their job. That's how they get paid. Rob the
Pretty much.
tourists.
I got pulled over the other day. I got pulled over today. The funny thing is, like, they won't just, at least in my experience, they won't just overtly do it. Like, they have to have some just cause, some
Yes.
allegedly just cause.
Right.
So, like, they
They
won't just be like, "Give me your money."
no, they what they did with me, and I only discovered it an hour later. What they did with me was they searched me against the car, took out my
Mhm.
wallet, put my wallet back, and then I had just taken out cash, and they had taken out, I think, $200. You know.
Mm.
The reason why Hans didn't notice is because he was enjoying being searched.
Yeah,
uh,
the number one trick I've learned from locals: when you get pulled over, put your cash away, hide your cash.
Yes.
So when
Yes.
they
wow.
see your wallet, they don't see money there.
Wow. A
Like,
great tip. Great tip.
yeah,
Where were
I
you
was
a
driving
couple
with
years ago?
yeah, I was driving with a friend of mine. She was she said, "Here, I'll stuff in my bra." So she took all my money and stuffed it into her bra. I was like, "Makes sense."
All right.
Yes.
Well, let's jump in, fellas. Welcome everyone to Calling All Men. If you're watching us live or if you're watching the live stream recording, we are talking with 70 men, great men this week. Our next guest is one of them. Over on the website, there are 50 pre recorded interviews. And each day of the week, we have a different theme. And today's theme is relationship, being a husband, marriage, being the patriarch of your family, a leader of your people. And yeah, so we welcome you. And over here on the Facebook page, we are streaming live. We are also streaming to our next guest's Facebook group. So if you are in Dennis Crosby's Facebook group, we welcome you. Yeah, welcome. And we're going to have a chat with this man, talk to him about men, about the challenges we face. And we're going to talk about getting real and taking responsibility as a man. I'm here with my co-host from Medellin, Hans Komen, an avid cyclist, a men's coach, and especially, I say, specializing in helping men internationalize their lifestyle and love style.
Mhm.
And I'm Michael Sky, and I am in Nairobi. Our next guest, our next guest has been coaching for the last 10 years. He is trained in multiple transformational modalities. He ran a seven-figure publication business online and is now helping men build their kingdoms via his company, Authentic Man. Dennis Crosby, welcome to Calling All Men.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Two things that I just have to come out of the gate saying. One, I want to honor you because most of these summits, like I was telling you before, is like 15, 20. Like the amount of effort it takes to bring 70 people together, have 70 conversations, and put it out there for people is just tremendous. I wouldn't wish it upon my greatest enemy. And I admire so few to be able to go do that.
It's probably been the most rewarding thing is all the great men that I've met. Um, and I'm very much looking forward to, we chatted a bit before we hit the record button about, I don't know, the state of men's work, men's coaching as like an industry. And I think it's really just budding. There's a huge movement of men growing. There's more men saying, yeah, that's, what I want to do is I want to work with men. I want to be a men's coach of some kind. I want to facilitate men's work. I want to, yeah, help men step more fully into their leadership, their power. And it's a very exciting time, I think, if you're a man who is working with men. But it's still a very young industry, and I'm very much looking forward to partnering with some great men next year. Hopefully
Yeah.
yourself as well, helping lift each other up. And this summit is one way I get to support men doing good work with other men.
Yeah, you have me, I'll absolutely be here. And I think one of the interesting things about a young industry like this is that the reason we need it is because of just a general lack of elders in society and how that's just been ravished over the years. And ironically, because there's a lack of elders, there's a lot of men having to figure it out. So it'd be kind of weird if it was more developed per se, because the men who would be the future elders are along their journey, and we're seeing people at all different steps of their journey being able to help different men with different things. And I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's going to emerge into a transformational landscape across the world in the coming years.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I've had some complaints about some of the men I've interviewed, being just more focused on self, on me, or being in more of a survivalist mode. But the reality is, so many of us have not had fathers. We haven't been initiated into some kind of brotherhood. We've had our own struggles with other men and with authority and society and everything else. But the beautiful thing is, every single man that I've interviewed is a man who is making a stand to make a difference for other men, so other men don't have to go through the tough times that they did, perhaps without a mentor, that they can have someone by their side. And that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for bringing that. Yeah, it's a good reminder. We're all on our path. We're all on our journey.
Yeah, for sure. And it's duality, right? Because one hand, it's beautiful, everybody has the intention to go out and serve and not have other people follow their pain, their trauma they went through. And on the other side, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. So we get to see
Yeah.
which one it will be when it's all said and done.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about getting real and taking responsibility as a man. Dennis, before we do, maybe just tell us a bit more about what you do. What is Authentic Man, and how do you work with men?
Yeah. So for the sake of time, I'll say in the most holistic sense of what we do, which is Authentic Man, it's all about closing that gap and helping men rise up. So when I say the gap, I mean the gap between what you want and how you're showing up with who you need to be to create that thing. So who you are and who you need to be, we're about closing that gap so you can create your vision, your kingdom, and really build that life that you can die with a smile. You can die feeling like I left nothing behind, no regrets. That was a huge driver for me growing up. Was I had this chronic fear of dying with regrets.
Mm.
And I think that has manifested and evolved into the work that I'm doing now, which is really I just want to help men around the world rise to the level that their vision requires.
Why do you feel you had that fear? Was it because you saw maybe a father or someone else die with regrets, or?
I can't peg it to anything specifically. Like there was no conscious models that I can think back to that would implanted that into me. It was one of those things where just like maybe I read in a book or something as a kid or something where I was just like, I do not want to on my deathbed look back to my life and wonder what if. Like that terrified me.
I'm curious what Hans has a question for you, but before we get into that, what would you tell us about like your upbringing, and did you have a father present in your life? Did you have male mentors? What was your situation growing up as a boy?
Yeah, I've been super fortunate. So I grew up with both my parents together and in the house. and they were very present in my life, very present in the house. My dad was a entrepreneur, call him a hustler. Really, my mom was retired on disability, so she was a housewife for the most part, and so they were very present. My dad could be your greatest cheerleader and also your harshest critic. So he very much had that duality inside of him. So that definitely made some challenges. And I had this perpetual not good enough conversation. So within that, like any criticism that I felt growing up was just fed that. So I definitely grew up with the feeling like it wasn't safe to be myself. And I would say that was probably, from a parental standpoint, one of the predominant things there. But other than that, like I was really fortunate to have a very relatively normal childhood and upbringing. I went to school, had lots of friends. We didn't move around a ton, so I had good community around me. When all my career, my pursuits in life, whether it be in school or beyond that, like I was really supported and lifted up. And then I've always been fortunate to attract great mentors into my life. I know I'm being like super unrelatable to people listening right now, but it's my truth, so whatever. And I think for me, I had to have a life like that because I was so hard on myself. Like if I had anything coming from external, it probably would have broke me, because I had that strong internal critic, that strong, like, I'm broken, I have to fix myself, and I'm willing to do whatever it is to find out what it takes to fix myself. So it was almost like life was like, all right, if you're gonna treat yourself like this, the least we can do is give you some support, give you some help, give you some outside love. But for most of my life, I couldn't even receive it. Like I just couldn't. And that.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so that drove me down like deep into personal development at an early age, going through all the stuff, the books, the events, the Tony Robbins, you name it, I've probably done it and have had some experience similar to, if not that experience. And that has propelled me up to the point where I was like, all right, this is clearly, it went from a trauma response to a genuine passion. And then from there, it was like, okay, this is how I would spend my time regardless of whether I'm paid for it or not. I just enjoy spending my time working on myself. So let me figure out how to do this, help others win through what I love.
So I'm curious, how did you end up in Mexico? And Hans also asks, what does kingdom mean in your the way you use it? And yeah, are you building your kingdom in Mexico? And if so, why?
Yeah, so for me, kingdom means cult. So I'm definitely aiming to be a cult leader. Joking. My lady is actually deeply into cults, so it's a fun joke.
Your lady.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kingdom. For me, kingdom really just means the life you want to live, the community you want to build around you, the people that you want to have in that inner circle. So that includes your career, your profession, your family, your relationships, your community, like all that within a kingdom. So not so much like a classical sense of it where you have the isolated borders and whatnot, but just a more holistic way of explaining like your life and everything that's affected within your life, really that inner circle for a man. And I think for us, it's really important that we define what that looks like. And that's where we focus our energy. Jordan Peterson talks about this. I really dig it, which is we're always talking about wanting to go change things out into the world, right? Go make change here, make change there, all this. But in reality, first we need to show that we can make changes within ourselves, then the people closest to us, and then circles out and out and out from there. Because if we just go out there and try to go change, let's say, the world, right? We don't know if it's going to work or not. We don't know what the results of that's going to be. And then others are paying the price for us experimenting. In reality, we need to be paying that price and experimenting within ourselves and the people closest to us. First, lead yourself, then lead your family, then lead your company or whatever world you're in professionally, then lead your community. And at each of those levels, we learn, we grow, we evolve, we develop as men. And then if we're good at it, we will be rewarded with being called forth to lead greater and greater bodies of people.
Beautifully said. So why did you lead yourself to Mexico?
Oh, all right, Mexico. You know, it was actually astrocartology. Right? So
Really?
yeah, for those of you who don't know, astrology, I think everybody pretty much knows what astrology is. So what they do is they take your birth chart, which is where a snapshot of the universe when you were born. Allegedly, I'm not super into astrology, but then they take that and they lay it over different parts of the world, so the longitudinal lines around the globe. And based off of that, they say different parts of the world, you'll feel different things. And I thought it was BS, but it was off the back of COVID. I was like, well, I have no line running through Florida where I'm at. Let me go check this out and see if there's anything to it. And got here, and within like 2 days, I noticed a substantial energetic shift within me, like undeniable. So I was like, well, let me chill here for a while. And now this season is pretty much running its course. So probably within the next few months, I'll be back in Florida where I'll really be playing my roots.
Is that where you grew up?
So I was born in California, raised in Florida, in between Orlando and Tallahassee. But we're looking actually South Florida when we move.
So, Hans, do you want to jump in here?
I'm interested in the work, the services you provide, and yeah, you love your work, and what is it that you're exactly doing?
Yeah, so right now our main focus is helping men who are struggling in their marriage. So usually most of our clients are dealing with a wife who says, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, or I don't want to be in a relationship, or I want a divorce, or here are the papers. Like along that spectrum are typically the men we work with. And going to a point that you mentioned earlier in our conversation, Mike, is that as men, it can be so hard to get us to take action when we're comfortable. Like for most men, they have to aspire for something really great, or they have to be in a lot of pain. Right? It's usually one of those two to get us motivated. And what I found is in that situation is an incredible time for transformational work to happen. When you feel like you're about to lose your entire family, your kids, and all that, like that is an incredible opportunity to make some deep, substantial changes and have the motivation to go do it. So that's one of the first area we chose to work in. There are other areas that we're going to be expanding out to because our mechanism is primarily the same, regardless. It's being very clear on what you want to create in life, getting clear on who you need to be to create that, and then focus on becoming that version of yourself, because it's that version of yourself that can fix your marriage or attract the woman that of your dreams. It's that version of you who can go build whatever you want to do in your career, business, whatever. It's that person you can change your community. Like everything you want, the process of realizing that is in the becoming of who you want to be and who you know you can be.
I mean, I see something similar in my work, but the men that come to you, are they committed to becoming, or are they there to save their marriage?
Yeah, it's all over the place, to be honest. So when I'm talking to a potential client, I usually will hear something along the lines of, I want to become a better version of myself. Like they've had some level of responsibility knowing that they played a part in this. And because of that, like there is a drive, but they're still very attached to the situation, right? There's still, I would say, anywhere from 50 to 70% of their motivation is to try and get their wife to open back up. And that changes throughout the course of the program as they realize that the more they focus inward, the better their results are outward. But you really only get that from actually doing that kind of work and seeing like, oh, the more I work on myself versus trying to get her to accept me or change or whatnot, like the better I feel, the better results I have, like the more she actually enjoys being with me.
Let's talk
Nice.
about getting real. What does that mean to you? And I assume this is something that is a key part of the work that you do.
Yeah, so we just talked about the vision aspect of creating and building your kingdom, right? You got to first see it in your mind before it can manifest into the physical, right? And as soon as you understand what it is you actually want to create and you understand who you need to be to create it, then the next step is taking an honest look at yourself and how you're showing up in that gap, right? Because it's really the work exists in that gap. And we all know to some extent what we want. Some are clearer than others. Some are in the process of figuring out. And as you get closer to it, like it changes, it evolves. I'm sure you guys are older than me, so I'm sure you've seen multiple iterations of your vision over the course of your life.
Yeah.
But that gap between what we want and what we have, who we need to be and who we are, inside that gap lies so much potential and power, right? That is like the juiciness of our life. Like that process of bridging that gap is that journey that everybody talks about that you're meant to enjoy. And the best way to access that latent potential, that latent power that's trapped in that gap is through taking responsibility. And by responsibility, I simply mean saying that I created and contributed to whatever it is that's happening in my life. And the more you move towards taking full responsibility, 100% responsibility, Joko calls it extreme ownership, but it's really just 100% responsibility, right? The more you bridge over to that, the more power you claim for yourself. And what I mean when I say that is, let's give an example. Marriage. We'll talk about marriage, right? So your wife wants to leave. So there could be a whole lot of reasons for this. Some have to do with you, some that don't. Objectively, some are related to you, some aren't. And the man who sits in that and goes into a place of, let's say, extremes, 0% responsibility, right? That means I did nothing, everything's happening to me. Like 0% responsibility means everything is happening to me. I am a victim, right? Victim is a state of disempowerment. On the extreme other side, 100%, I have created this. Like 100%, this is my creation, this situation. Now, what ends up happening in your brain when you go into that way of seeing things is if you have the power to create it, then by definition, you have the power to create something else and or fix it, right? The same you who has that power has the power to change as well. So the benefit, whether it's right, wrong, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't really matter. The more you move over to 100% responsibility for anything in your life, any result, anything that's presenting itself in front of you, you now get to tap into latent power within you. You are now recognizing more and more of your power to go out there and affect the world. So it can be very challenging to go to deeper and deeper levels of responsibility because it usually requires us to face parts of ourselves. But through that process, we become more powerful as men.
Yes.
Amen. Hans?
Yes. Yeah, I wonder how how do I say this? I sometimes say responsibility can only be taken, which also points at the challenge you face as when you're working with people. Yes, when someone takes more responsibility, there's a liberation that happens there, you know. But how do you get someone to take more responsibility?
Yeah, I think at least in my line of work, what we do is first we make them aware of it. Like we first becoming aware of your results. Most of us won't even take a true honest look at the results we're creating in our own life. Right? That's how our relationships get to the point where they are, is we just turn a blinder to it. We don't want to acknowledge what's happening. We don't want to hear when she's saying there's a problem. We just think, oh, it's okay, it's good enough. We're comfortable. We're complacent. So that's step one, is getting out of complacency. And usually that comes from awareness of bringing attention to your results. And then once you have attention to your results, now you can look at specifically, okay, there's this thing present in my life that I don't want. Now, how did I contribute? Like, how did I create this? Like, what parts of me created this? And that's surprisingly easy for most people to do, is when faced with the reality of a result, usually we can pinpoint a couple of areas. We may not get it all because we have our own blinders, our own level of awareness, what else is showing up in our lives. Like we have those, we all have our blind spots. But most people can come up with at least 1 to 3 things that are contributing to that. And usually it's as simple as, okay, these are the 3 things that created this situation. So go work on those 3 things. Like, it's not rocket science. Like, use responsibility as a tool to show our blind spots, show our weaknesses, show what parts of us are contributing to the things that we don't want. Go work on those parts of ourselves, whatever that looks like, then rinse and repeat. And then that's going to upcycle you into the man that you need to be to create your vision. So I try to keep things as simple as possible in my line.
I guess the crisis itself, or the perceived crisis, makes men at least more inclined to look at things a different way.
Yeah, 100%. Which is why I choose, at least in this season, to work with men in some form of crisis, because that's when you get their attention. That's when they can be like, they wake up and they're out of that dream for at least some period of time. But even that window is quite small, because eventually they acclimate. Right? Eventually it becomes a new norm, and there's like, okay, well, guess I'm just gonna move on my life like this, until they repeat the same mistake that got them there, and then a new window opens. Like, as men, as people, really, we can adjust and adapt to pretty much any situation or environment. So it's really important that we capitalize those small windows where we're just like, I don't want this. This hurts. Enough is enough. Something has to change, to open up a path.
Yes, very interesting. So give us more about taking responsibility, as a man. How else can we work to see our part in something, or to take the next step to closing that gap?
Yeah, I live a vision first principle with life. Right? I believe everything as men has to begin from a place of our vision. So the first question I think every man needs to ask, well, the first question is, what you want? First question is, what do you want? Like, really making it a practice of asking yourself, what do you want? And then as you get clear at what you want, then you get to ask, what do I have? And then whatever that gap is, just ask, okay, why? Why is there a gap? Right? How am I contributing to this? And I keep coming back to this process because I believe it truly is as simple as this. Like, I don't think it has to be very convoluted. It's really just looking at what you want, looking at what you have, and putting your attention towards that gap and really understanding, like, okay, accept responsibility that this isn't, I'm not victim to my circumstances and my environment. I am more powerful than those things. So the only thing holding me back is myself. So then let me look and see what aspects of myself are actually holding me back. And I find that this isn't that hard for most people to do. I don't care how much experience that you have with personal development, going to reading books, seminars, all that stuff helps. But there's a part of you that I believe, at least I believe, there's a part of us that knows and can feel like where we're not showing up, at least parts of it. And that journey of developing those aspects will open up the rest. Like, it's a lifelong pursuit and it goes through iterations. So just whatever's showing up, just go do that. And transferring back to society as a whole and men across society as a whole, I truly believe that if every man would go out there and create his vision, his unique thing that he wants to bring to the world, and not from like a cheesy purpose, like go write this book to do that, but just go show up as the man you want to be. Go create whatever kingdom you want for yourself, right? If we all did that, that would create a world that at least would be much better than what we have right now. I'm not saying it'd be a utopia, but I am saying it would be substantially better than what we have now. Because I really think that society, we're dealing with a lack of vision crisis. We're dealing with a lack of responsibility crisis. And yeah, I mean, at its core, I really think that's what's going on across society right now as men. Like,
yeah, this is this conversation is very apropos because in the last hour we talked to Om Rupani on vision. He was so passionate about men finding a vision, and part of the benefit is that women can find men they can respect to date. There seems to be a great crisis also of, well, there's a lot of men who've never had sex. There's a lot of men who are not leaving their parents' home into their 30s. There's a lot of men who are not finding a partner. There are a lot of men who are just dropping out of all responsibility in life. And vision is missing. Vision is missing.
yeah, and I don't know how he defined vision, but also I think vision can also be conflated with this idea of something big and grandiose. And it doesn't have to be. It's truly just whatever you authentically want in your life. And if that is to stay at home and take care of your parents as they go into their age and have that, that's not a problem. That doesn't make you any less of a man than anyone else. That doesn't make you any less of a person than anyone else. It's just you authentically owning what that is and becoming the person who can do that to the best of your ability. Just choosing to go do that.
And when I talked to you before, I heard a little bit of your story, and you were running that 7-figure publishing company. And then at some point you realized, like, this is not making me happy. And you came up with this vision for Authentic Man. Would you tell us about that? Like, maybe applying this general idea to your own life and how you're going about that?
Yeah. So I was, real short version is, I was running a publishing company for about 10 years. Like 2 years in, I knew that I didn't want to be doing this. So I spent 8 years. I'm a very slow learner sometimes. I have to learn things the hard way. I'll kick and scream to not have to do things sometimes. And for 8 years, I was constantly trying to convince myself to stay, find reasons to stay, trying to create a vision within that container that was meaningful to me. And for 8 years, I failed. Right? I just kept trying and failed because I was. Were
you also making more and more money? Was that part of the seduction of it?
Yes and no. in the beginning, because I had genuine enthusiasm, because it was new, it was different, lots of things were working really well, so that hooked me. And then I just got stubborn. Like for majority of the business, it was losing money, and then for about a 2-year window, it made a lot of money. And then it was like a slow decline after that. And after it finally went to trash, is I looked back and I was like, okay, why did this happen? Like if I could have gone back and done something different, like could I have made this business work? And I looked at every major issue that I could identify why this business didn't ultimately work. And I could trace them all back to me not wanting to be there. It could all be traced back to the root of me not wanting to be there. And when I went on to my next endeavor, I made a commitment to myself that I would at least not repeat that mistake. I would find something that I actually wanted to do, because I saw how far I'd go. I saw that in my relationship. Like I was in a 3-year relationship. And when that ended, I looked back. It was the same situation. Ultimately, I didn't want to be in that relationship. I spent 2.5 years of those 3 trying to convince myself to be in the relationship. And that doesn't work for so many reasons. But yeah, it was this, I kept seeing that trend happening.
Would you during that business and during that relationship, when asked, do you want this, would you have said yes or no?
Of course, because I was asked that. I was told, especially in the business, by like business friends and all that, like, you don't really seem like you want to be doing this, or you don't seem like you enjoy this. I can only understand why you're doing this business. And for me at least, when I'm in the thick of it, like I can rationalize and deceive myself with the best of them. Like I can come up with all the reasons. Yeah.
Do you want to do this work that you're doing now?
I do.
What's the difference? What's the difference? Because back then you would have said also that you wanted it.
Yeah. Well,
and I ask not as necessarily because I want to provoke you, but like to understand for people like what it means to really want something.
Yeah. I have yet to have to convince myself to come do this work. It's probably the biggest difference. Like it may be hard, may be challenging, but I've never fundamentally asked myself, do I want to be doing this? Right? In the last business, the last relationship, I asked myself those questions. They came from external, but they also came from internal. I've never once had to question this. I might be questioning, is this the right move? Am I doing the right thing in this business? But fundamentally, I've never questioned if I should be doing this, or if this is worth my time, or could I be doing something better than this? Which are all questions I asked. And I asked those in a relationship too.
So you also came to a point of crisis, like you're talking about in your model of with when you work with men, that we tend to wait until we're in crisis or when we have this huge vision. You came to the point of crisis with that business because it ultimately,
Yeah. My point of crisis, similar to men in the marriages, is like I'll hold on for dear life. Like I can be so stubborn in the name of like commitment. It goes actually, it's the trade-off to that dying with regrets, because I think any belief can be used to both serve you and destroy you. Right. So for me, what that dying with regrets looks like is I want to see this through to the end. I want to do everything I can possibly think of.
Well, you did see it through to the end.
I did, for better or worse. And I will say, I look back to that and I'm like, there's nothing I could have done differently. I can close that chapter knowing that I did everything I possibly could. So it's a pro, but I also spent 10 years of my life, which could easily been brought down to 3 or 4. I could have gotten out and clean break and went and did something else that was more aligned. So it was a lot of struggle, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of hurt, a lot of debt, and just, but also a tremendous amount of growth. And I don't think I could be doing the work I did now if I hadn't stayed in that business for as long as I did.
Yeah, if the story is very similar to the people you're working with, I mean, you got something to tell. I think it's fantastic, no?
I mean, I know what
And
it's like to be in something that is just feels like it's crumbling. No matter what you do, it doesn't work. To be
Mm.
berated, to be treated like you're the villain. I know what it's like to feel like nothing you do is good enough. I know what it's like to show up every day, give your all, and still not be appreciated for it. To provide for these people, and they're just like, okay, but this isn't enough. I need you to give more. Like all those situations, like I've experienced in my relationships too, but inside that business, like there were times it was just truly hell. Like I was forged in fire.
So it sounds like you also, I mean, saw your previous relationship through to some kind of end and came up with a vision for a girl that likes cults.
Yeah, you know, it's funny when this relationship first began, we were sitting on the couch and we were talking, and it was the first date. We were just like, you know, what are you looking for? And I said, what I was looking for. And it was just funny as we talked for like 6 hours, our first date. And as we were going on, like this, I could visualize this checklist that I didn't even know was really there showing up. And it was just like, check, 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 check. And literally everything I could think of, I could possibly want, she had, to the point where I was like, wow, I've finally become a man who can attract what I want and hold on to what I want. And not say it didn't have challenges. Definitely some challenges came with that. But because you can bring it in, but you still may not be ready. That thing may need to show you there's some areas that still need to be worked on. Definitely got a lot of that. But it was the funniest thing. And this was a hard one for me to come to grips with, because what I realize is I had been living my life from a place of thinking that finding the woman of my dreams that I wanted to be with would bring me happiness and fulfillment. Well, it's essentially fulfillment. It almost like it was a purpose within my life. And then when I finally got it, I realized that, oh, this is great. I love it. It's awesome to have. And I'm no more fulfilled than I was before it. And that's when it finally clicked. When I've heard so many men tell me, like, your woman should be the icing on the cake of your life. Like, you still have to go build the life that leaves you fulfilled. And that's when that moment finally clicked. And I was like, all right, regardless of relationship, I have to go do what I need to go do to feel good, to feel fulfilled, to feel like I'm living out a purpose.
Yeah, it's beautiful. In a moment, I want to ask you about what your vision is now, you know, what you see for your future now. I just want to take a moment and remind everyone that if you're enjoying this, I invite you to tag a brother, share this video conversation with the men in your community. We are gathering with men at callingallmensummit.com, meeting many great men, mentors, brothers, finding brotherhood. And we are live streaming for the rest of the week through Sunday night right here on facebook.com/Calling All Men Summit. This is where you can find the live. So follow the page, like the page. And yeah, so Dennis, also when we were intending to do a training right after this live stream with you. Mm-hmm. However, technically, the people who've chosen to purchase this full summit package, the library, all the bonus trainings, the group, everything else, they've not yet been added into the group. So we're going to see if we can schedule a live training with you once everyone gets into the group, probably sometime next week or the week after.
Yeah, just let me know.
Great. And you are going to take us through a rapid vision creation exercise, which relates directly to what we're talking about right here with vision. I'd be curious to hear, what is your vision for the next chapters of your life?
Yeah, how detailed do you want me to go? That could be quite the conversation. I would say at the purest sense is my goal is to see how far I can go in life, see how amazing a life I can create for myself. Like if you want to talk about like the true root of anything I do is, or my drive is to just see what's possible for me in this life. Now, what that looks like is I want to help men all over the world rise to the level their vision requires as a overall mission within my own life. You know, the family, the lifestyle. I really enjoy being in beautiful homes. So being in beautiful homes around the world. I love the idea. I don't know why, ever since I was like a teenager, just loved the idea of private jets. So like my two little quote toys in my life are going to be homes and a jet. Like that's really materialistically all I actually desire. But since personal development is my passion, like I've been able to cultivate some of the people who are the best in the world at what they do to come support me and mentor me and whatnot. So more of that, having like a team to support my lifestyle. So, you know, the chefs, the helpers, raise the kids, things like that. All those, and just really build a life that I'm just like, holy shit, it's possible. Right? It's possible to create this. And I mean, I can go into details about my vision all day, but at its core, like that's what I want for myself, the business. What I want to do is go serve men and really just bring the fullness of myself out to the world and see what happens.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being a man who's out there showing up for men, especially men in crisis, at that, you know, crossroads in life, when, you know, we all could use a mentor, could use a brother, could use someone who maybe is a little further along on the path. And yeah, it's what the world needs, I think, is
And who gives a fuck? Who cares?
yes, more men showing up, more men showing up, more men stepping into roles of leadership, being of service, men who have a vision, and yeah, for creating a more beautiful world, a more beautiful future for all of us humans. So thank you, Dennis, for joining us on Calling All Men, and for sharing this with your community, giving a shout out to all the authentic men in your group.
Yes.
And yeah, we look forward to connecting with you more in our live training for those who own the summit package. Thank you, Hans Komain.
Yes.
What'd you say?
For what? For what?
All the brilliant questions and insights.
No, thank you, Michael, for setting this up, and thank you, Dennis, for doing your work.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I look forward to just learning more about you guys, getting more involved in what you're building, and whatever I can do to be a service. Absolutely.
Great.
Ditto. Beautiful. All right, gentlemen, everyone, we are done with the live streams for tonight. We'll see everyone tomorrow at let's see, noon.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. It's true.
10
The
a.m.
schedule is changing so much. Let's see. I keep adding more men to the schedule here. 10 a.m. Eastern time, Friday.
No.
And well, it's either 10 a.m. or noon. We'll figure it out.
It's noon. It's noon. It's noon. It's noon.
We'll see.
I love live production.
Yeah, it's very live. So, all right, guys. Good night.
Thank you.